I think every interview I've listened to with you, at some point the voice gets brought up, right? Like it's so distinct. As soon as you start singing, people know, yes, that's Colter Wall. But you've changed your voice a little bit over, on these last few albums, right?
Well, I learned how to sing.
What's that?
I said I learned how to sing is what I've been telling most people when they ask about it. But yeah, it was an intentional change, and a lot of it has just come from the past 5 years of my life have been spent, like I said, a lot of time in the passenger van and a lot of time performing. Pretty much right up until the COVID thing hit this spring, we were real busy, like hitting it pretty hard on the road.
Right.
Any working musician will tell you that because that's what it always feels like. But we would be, out for about a month at a time and then have maybe a week or half a week off and then out for another month at a time. So we were hitting it pretty hard. And when you play that much, or maybe not everybody, but for me, this music is just like anything. The second you think you know it all and the second you think that there's nothing left to learn, you might as well quit doing it. It's just like anything in life. So I always like to I'll constantly pushing to be a little better, whether it's picking the guitar or singing. And I really wanted to work on my range as a vocalist and kind of find a more comfortable place for me to sing, because I've always had a deeper voice, but it's taken a while for me to figure out how to utilize it in different ways. And when I first started singing, I was really kind of just growling into a microphone a lot, which people like, turns out. It took me some time just sort of living with it and practicing singing a lot and playing a lot of shows, a lot of different kinds of shows too, for different kinds of crowds, to sort of figure out how to, the voice is an instrument. People always talk about that. People in music like to talk about utilizing your vocal cords as their own kind of instrument. And really a lot of it has been trying to emulate other singers that have sort of different range that I do. So it's been an intentional thing, just trying to get better at it, and trying to mature a little there in the world of singing and vocals and everything. So
how did you do? I'm curious, like there's two questions that come to mind. Like when you first started playing and singing, like did that voice, is that just what came out? And then at a later time you realize, okay, I want to tweak some stuff?
Well, I never really sang. I always played guitar from about 13, and when I picked it up, played guitar. And then I kind of started messing around with wanting to write a little bit. And that's sort of where the singing came from, because I figured if I'm going to write it, somebody's got to sing these songs, So it's been a learning experience all the way through. It probably, I don't know if I can remember, but I think, the first time I really tried to sing it, I don't think it would have been, I was probably trying to sing in a higher register, and at that point wasn't able to do that. I do remember struggling with trying to sing these songs that I was messing around with for a long time, just, to myself and in my bedroom, messing around with stuff. And I don't know if there was a specific moment where I just sort of tried to hit a lower register or something, but there may have been. And I decided that maybe I was going to stick with it. But yeah, I mean, you can hear it if you listen to the first EP I put out. I think was 2015 or something like that, 2014, 2015. And to me, when I hear it, it sounds like a guy that doesn't know how to sing. And I know people enjoy it, and I appreciate it.
I think 50 million streams on Spotify. I think it's working.
Yeah. Goes to show that, I really don't know anything about any of this and how it works. And I've kind of, like most things in life, stumbled into this and it's worked for me. But like anything, I'm never really contented at any point with anything I do on a musical level or anything that I ever really do. That's just kind of way things have been for me, where I'm constantly trying to, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to find some way to improve, or just learn something, a new trick or whatever it might be,
Right. Talk about that a little bit. Like I think starting out at anything, especially performance related, like we don't know what we don't know, and so we just go do it, and then if it works, it works. If not, we don't know any different. But like as your career has grown, do you feel like there's expectations that are coming like from others or even maybe from yourself, like an identity that you have to be a certain way? And if so, like how do you navigate that and overcome it?
No matter what you do, if you begin to have any kind of success or any kind of renown, I guess we'll say, no matter what it is, I think there's going to be expectations from certain people. And that's certainly true for music, because it's such a public thing where everybody listens to music, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things where you sort of have to expect that certain people that have certain ideas about what you should be doing or what you need to change or where you should be at as a public figure, I guess you might switch. Right. I hate saying public figure because I don't see myself as one, but if you work in this industry, I guess you're that's just part of it, being in the public eye at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Not one of my favorite parts of the job, but it's in the job description anyways. As far as navigating that, I don't know if I have really a good answer. I like to think that, everybody's got an opinion, obviously, and there's certain people in my life that I'll maybe give a little more consideration to what their expectations or opinions might be, just because of mentors and things like that. But you can't pay. It's one of those things too where you just can't pay too much attention. It's like don't read every comment on the YouTube video or that kind of thing, because there's a lot of people out there, and the way that things are shared nowadays too, it's just a kind of an open format for negativity sometimes. And I've certainly learned that. I think I used to care a lot more about starting out. I think I cared a lot more about what people thought, and what people were saying about what I was trying to do. Over time, you just kind of have to not grow callous to it necessarily, but everything with a grain of salt, I guess.
Yeah, what was it that built the confidence to like overcome that? Was it like you just got to a point where you said, I'm going to do my thing, like this is what I want to do, and this is what's true to me, and this is what's important to me? I mean, what was it that I guess helped you kind of overcome that? I
had kind of a interesting childhood because what my dad did for a living, he was in politics there in Saskatchewan, where I grew up, which is in Western Canada. And anyone could tell you that has been even close to anyone involved in politics, there's a lot of scrutiny there, as you might imagine. So growing up from a young age, I guess I hadn't thought about it, but from a young age, it was kind of my first exposure to that, of, people's expectations and people's opinions, and people that I'd never met and never would meet, but they knew who I was because of the old man and whatever their feelings might have been about him, So I think from a young age, I remember being, there was times where you're upset because it's like, that's my dad.
Yeah.
And it's hard to take as a kid, just to realize that, man, there's some people out there that they hate his guts and liver, man. Like they just they hate him,
Yeah.
And that's politics for you. So I think being exposed to that at a young age was probably, as far as just having thick skin and not letting what people say too much really influence you. I would imagine that probably helped with the whole, my own being in the public eye, which again, I'm still not really comfortable with, but I'm sure that's had something to do with just kind of being able to let stuff roll off your back a little more easy as opposed to getting hung up on all the little critiques of everybody out there.
I'm curious to know, Colter, when did you realize, okay, I'm actually pretty damn good at this, and I could probably do this for a living, like I could do this professionally? When did that light bulb go off for you?
I think the first time I came to play in like stateside, because my trajectory, I guess you might say, as a performing musician kind of went, started off kind of funny. I went to the big university we have in Saskatchewan, which is just called the U of S. I went there for 2 years after high school. And during that time was messing around with writing and all what we talked about before, playing guitar and figuring out how to sing and all that. And I knew by my second year at the U of S that it wasn't going to be a real good fit for me.
The university itself, or just school in general?
School in general, for sure. Working out real good. And it wasn't, I could tell it wasn't really where I needed to be. So I had started making plans to get a job and then, you know, try to play some gigs around wherever I could, local gigs on the weekends. So I dropped out, and it's funny because it coincides with, it kind of coincides with my first experience, really my first experience working with livestock. Because I grew up in town. I grew up in a small town, but in town. So I didn't have any experience with cattle or horses or anything like that. Until later in life, my cousin had this job at this big feedlot operation, probably about, this guy's place is out by Rush Lake, Saskatchewan. So it's like 20 minutes east of where I grew up. So I got a job there because my cousin, who had some good words about me for the boss, even though I didn't know anything. And there's still very little that I do know. But I got a job there and was just kind of the go over there, stand over there guy, you know, the green guy that everybody's nice to, but yeah, whatever, go work on that.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you're doing.
I've been there and I'm still there in some ways.
Yeah. And then on the weekends, I would try to get gigs, and they were all kind of just local gigs at first. And there were some bands that I had been, you know, become friendly with that would let me sort of open up for them certain gigs on the weekends. And eventually I had some, with the help of meeting some people from the States that were wanting to sort of help out as far as booking and management, stuff like that. I got to play some gigs down south. And I think there was a point where I had an actual tour booked in America, which was my first one that wasn't a Canadian tour. And at that point was probably where I realized there's like, if I can draw a crowd in these states that I've never even been to before, I think I could maybe get away with doing this for a living, you know? And, and since then it's come seemingly really quickly, but there's been no shortage of, like I said before, good luck and good timing and plenty of hard work too. That's sort of gotten me to where it's a sustainable, you know, gig. And I'm real grateful for that. But that was probably around, I think probably the first time that it popped into my head, like, well, maybe I can, you know, this doesn't have to be just a weekend thing for me if I really go after it. And you know, it takes that. It takes really going after it and kind of throwing caution to the wind a little bit and going to strange places and playing for strangers. But stuck with it, and so far it's worked. So I guess I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, hell yeah. I think when you can do the thing you love to do and people see value in that and you can make money at it, then you win. Like you figured it out, you know? Question for you. I'm gonna quote a Guy Clark lyric from Cold Dog Soup.
Good man.
He says, there ain't no money in poetry. That's what sets the poet free. I've had all the freedom I could stand. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how do you separate the business side as a musician? How do you separate and I know you have your people at this point that take care of most of the business, but like, how do you separate the business side from the art of making music, and like what's true to you?
It's not, anyone that says that they don't worry at all about the business side of the music thing is probably either lying or they're just, you know, successful enough to where they can not worry about it at all. But it's kind of a weird balance, I guess, because, you know, it's a job, you know, as much as it might not feel like it at times, it is a job, and it has to be sustainable, right? But I think probably less so for me, just because of the style of music that I make and the kind of records I've put out in what's been a the short period of time that I have been doing this, they're not really commercial anyhow. So I haven't had to navigate some of the things that someone that's a little more radio friendly, a little more commercial would probably have to figure out in that position, as far as, business decisions versus strictly artistic integrity kind of stuff. And just because, just because of the style of stuff that I write and put out there doesn't have that commercial draw, I probably haven't really had to deal with this in the same way. But I guess it just is a kind of a self-awareness thing, and knowing who you are as a person and knowing what you want your art to represent and how you want it to be received. I guess, we've had with this new record that we put out, myself and the people that helped me out, record label folks and management and all that stuff. We had a few opportunities with this new release, my most recent record, to kind of broadly advertise this thing. And I talked to my good buddy Travis, who's my manager, whenever we finished this record, and basically told him, like, this is going to be kind of a niche record anyways to a lot of people. These are songs about a certain kind of people in the world, and that's our target audience here. So, I didn't really feel the need to do certain things like let's make sure we get a billboard advertisement in Toronto or in New York, or these big city markets, because I was really wanting to. I kind of told them from the beginning, if we can get the people that these songs are about, if we can get them listening, and then I'll feel like I've succeeded with this record. That, to me, will feel like success, as opposed to let's just get the numbers as high as we can. It was really more of a, let's make this personable and try to really really hit home with the hats, crowd. And I think we've done a decent job of that. But I guess that's an example of, like, let's look at this a little bit differently, and we can still have an approach that addresses the business of everything, but at the same time, we know what we're trying to do here, and we know what the mission statement is.